Meet our next guest who works hard to create and strengthen positive relations between a college and the community. Coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Fox 43 studio. We're focused on the Horry Georgetown Technical College Foundation, and we're visiting with its executive director, Dr. Gary Davis. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to be here.
Dr. Davis, you mind if we call you Gary?
No, that's fine.
It's fun to say Dr. Davis, and obviously you worked hard to get that, so thanks for coming in. It's been so exciting to learn about the foundation, having recently joined the board, and of course to see that this thing's been in existence a little more than 25 years now.
Right. That's part of the sort of whole history of financing of colleges. If you go back into the history, we know private institutions, all the colleges and universities in America, the private institutions always survived on giving, popular giving from people. But your public institutions didn't until we got into the 60s and 70s as state dollars and federal dollars and so forth began to become hard to come by. The growth, the leading edge experiments and so forth of the colleges had to be funded by outside activities. So most of the smaller four-year colleges and universities and your community colleges foundations were created about 25, 30 years ago, where they began to form outside independent organizations that could raise money, invest it, and then provide it to the college for program and enhancement and other kinds of activities. So it grew up along with this whole generation of needing to find additional funds to provide quality higher education.
Well, it is so vital, and the recognition there, and of course to have recently surpassed $4 million, a huge landmark considering so much of that's been raised in only the last, 4 or 5 years?
Correct. We started off small. 25 years ago did our first campaign, and we were able to raise about $500,000 in pledges that took us actually probably, 8 years to get. But as it's grown and grown, better board, better service, better identification in the community, recognition of needs, we've been really on a roll here, and we hope that'll continue into the next couple of decades.
Before focusing more on the foundation, let's talk a little bit about yourself, Gary. Are you originally from the area?
I was born and raised in Charleston. In fact, my family are Charlestonians. That's a claim you can't make until your family's been there for 100 years. And my great-grandfather, who was in the Confederate Army and then came back after the war and moved to Charleston, and so we're there. I still have two brothers who live there, and I live there now and sort of commute.
You commute to Myrtle Beach or to Horry County?
To Horry County.
To Conway.
I live on the Isle of Palms there, and I have a little place here, so I come up once or twice a week and stay here, run back and forth to Charleston, spend most of my weekends down there, of course.
Aside from being the executive director of the foundation, you also hold a title within the college itself.
Right. I'm the vice president for advancement and technology. There are multiple facets of that. Advancement is raising funds, and so my work for the college in terms of federal grants, state grants, and so forth. And we currently run 5 major federal grants that we have that are ongoing projects. We applied for about 8 this year. We've applied for more federal grants than we have ever done before. Those are done through the college. And then the other part of the advancement is working with the foundation that raises private funds, which eventually are available to the college for programming or employee assistance and other kinds of activities that we do. And then I'm also the administrative technology. I'm not involved in teaching computers, but all of our administrative computers, all of our backbone, all of our network, all of our technology that keeps the institution running, all of our software and so forth, I sort of generally manage that activity.
And is the foundation able to help on some of those aspects of the college, or does that primarily?
Yes, the foundation helps a whole lot of ways. In fact, one of the foundation's interesting programs is we provide a supplement to employees called the Employee Computer Enhancement Plan. Many of our employees work at home or take work back and forth home, and so one of the things we decided years back is that the foundation would facilitate employees owning personal computers that are parallel to their work computers. So sometimes now they can work from home. They don't have to carry anything home. They can go home, take their personal computer, log in, and work on emails and other kinds of activities. So that's one of the ways that the foundation has both helped employees move into this new tech world, and then also have advanced the technology of the institution. Another big activity the foundation did was we just opened a new campus, which I hope everyone in the community knows about, up at North Myrtle Beach. It's part of the North Myrtle Beach High School. And we built in that facility a distance learning classroom where the instructors can be in Conway or Grand Strand or Georgetown, and the students can be in North Myrtle Beach. So we provide instruction through distance learning. And the foundation advanced the funds of $125,000 for us to be able to get that system up and running. And then we were able to get pledges and commitments from the community to put that $125,000 back into the foundation.
How vital. How vital. Now, not wearing any teaching hats now. Had you in the past worn any teaching hats?
Well, yes, in fact, I am teaching. I had a class this morning. I left the class at 12. I said I had to run over to Channel 43 to be on television. I'm teaching one course. My background is in film and television in Hollywood. I worked in Hollywood 6 years. I had my own production company for more than 10 years. I taught film and television production at the university level. I taught it at Boston University and in Atlanta, and founded the program at USC in Columbia called Media Arts. And we're developing one now. We have a whole new 2-year degree that we're calling Digital Arts, which is going to be computer arts, graphic design. It's going to be video production, web production, and so forth at the college. And so I'm teaching one course in, it's called The Art of Film. It's a sort of a historical survey of some of the great films that were made over the last century. And
great, Gary. That's here at the college.
Here at the college.
Now, of course, you know the bulk of our viewers are in the PD in southeastern North Carolina. Are there similar programs, let's say at Florence Darlington Tech, or?
There are not, to my knowledge. Now, Francis Marion has an art program, and I think they do some media arts. I'm not terribly familiar with that. Our new digital arts curriculum is a premiere for the state. In fact, as we've developed it, and it's going through its final approvals at state level now, about 8 other technical colleges have got on board and say, we want to offer the same program at our institution. So there is a program at Trident Tech in Charleston, and of course there's a program at USC in Columbia. There's one up in Greenville. But I'm not sure of any others in the region.
Well, golly, that must be exciting to be helping to mold something from the ground up, and know that a number of the other technical colleges are very excited about also having that opportunity.
It's unique. Yeah, it is, and it's very unique. As I said, my background was in film, and I learned to edit movies, plastic strips and all that sort of stuff. And that's a technology that's disappearing. Even though you still go see movies, and they're still on film. I was telling someone the other day that I think in 5 years, Kodak as a corporation, the entire product may be out of existence. We're going to digital cameras for stills. We're going to digital cameras for video. It's all recorded in bits and bytes. And I think that the film industry will cease to exist. But it's the same technology used to lay out and design work. My first career was art. I was a designer. I studied art in New York and worked as a package designer in Madison Avenue in New York. And you did everything with T-squares and triangles and paste up and rubber cement. Nobody does that anymore. It's all done on a computer. It's all done in digital, art. And so we think this is a unique new program that we're going to put together here.
And when you enter the classroom now, Gary, you probably cull a lot from your students themselves. I mean, you're probably picking up some great pointers from them. Many of these are well advanced, well beyond. Of course, so many of the students at the college are already in their professions and are coming in to hone the skills.
Yes, it's an interesting dimension because our students are older. Our average age is 26, single parent, female. And in fact, in the class this morning, we had a very interesting discussion because several of my students are older women with children, and several are right out of high school. And we get into discussions. We were looking at the film Pulp Fiction, Quentin Tarantino's film, and we're discussing the moral issues and the moral lessons and the values, because there's a lot of biblical symbolism. And there's moral issues, and there are different perspectives. Last week we saw Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. And so you have these older people, some black, some white, and you get into these discussions about, these are different issues and these are different values, and how we learn about those so much. In fact, I talked this morning about Pulp Fiction and Sam Peckinpah and violent films, which years ago would not have been popular, but now we understand them in a greater detail. So it's an interesting experience.
That must be. Golly, and to discuss Pulp Fiction early this morning, an amazing, just amazing thought patterns that would go into that, I'm sure, with an older crowd and a younger crowd.
It's 8 o'clock class, so interesting to be up in Brighton early and discussing these complex issues and get students involved.
Very definitely. When you think about it, of course, that involvement, having been on Madison Avenue and then having been out in Hollywood and have lived in the number one and number two largest, for instance, TV markets in the country, to now be living in Charleston back home and traveling up and down the Low Country. What's that like, Gary?
Well, part of that is just understanding. And when I first came here years back, when I first came to the college, I did public relations and media, and we did our own television and things like that, radio commercials, TV commercials. But it is an interesting thing, and one of the things that the students, and we've discussed as some of the films we've looked at, for example, is the fact that they don't have those opportunities to see them. I said, if you go back 30 years, 99% of all the movies made you would have seen at the local movie because they would come through. That small percentage you would not. But that has changed over the years now with the advent of film and dimensions and 16-screen theaters and so forth. And you see more and more of this universal thing. It's opened up. Television itself, Fox cable, Fox channels and cable TV has opened up the world to seeing things. 20 years ago, you wouldn't have had the capacity to see a foreign film. 2 weeks ago, we looked at Fellini's 8½. You couldn't have seen that in Myrtle Beach. You couldn't have seen it in most of the world outside of the major markets. Nowadays, with cable TV and opening up of channels and other kinds of things, people are being exposed to things that they just didn't have. Our world is getting smaller.
It sure is. It sure is. Let's talk about the foundation. What the purpose? You laid out that strategy more than 25 years ago, leading up to the actual founding of the foundation in '78. The primary purpose, of course, as you said, is just to augment or to support the mission of the college. But when we think about those aspects on a day-to-day basis, the impact on students, let's say, how would the foundation? You talked about some of the employee and professor sides as it relates to students. How are they impacted by the foundation?
The overall impact eventually gets back to students, and of course, a lot of our activities relate to scholarship fundraising. We give over $40,000 in scholarships that we have raised that have been endowed for students. When I first came here, Kent Sharples, the prior president of the college, hired me, and he came and he said, we don't have a foundation. We've organized one, we've put a board together, we've developed this basis for it, now we need to go. And so we developed the foundation, we raised funds, and a lot of those, our first activity was to say, what is the equipment? A lot of the things that we do now, we gave, at its meeting next week, Foundation meets next week, it will award about $45,000 in various equipment projects for enrichment of an academic program, where if a professor says, I need this particular technology so that my students can do certain things. And so the foundation will give funds for that. One of the biggest things that we do that's sort of a direct benefit to students takes place in the fact that even though we have lottery now, and students understand that they can go to Horry Georgetown Tech at a significantly reduced cost, and as the first $900 comes out of the lottery, one of the things that hits them hard is not just the additional tuition, but books and fees. Book costs today are outrageous. An average nurse, there would be nothing unusual for a nurse to go into the bookstore and find a single book costing $150. And that's for one course. Students, in my own course, I told the students, I said, books are inexpensive, $15, $20. They came back and said, that book is $45. And, I said, well, Barnes & Noble, you should go get it non-commercially for less than that. But what do we do in many of our things? We have student loan funds that are funded by the foundation. In fact, we'll be creating another one next week that we think will be strictly for those extra expenses. That can go for books. Sometimes it's childcare, sometimes it's transportation and so forth. So a lot of our scholarships, a lot of our emergency loan funds and so forth go directly to students through the foundation. The students learn about it. In fact, the students know who is giving them funds. We had a banquet just recently where we brought some of our students together and some of the donors. And it's really a fascinating experience to have dinner with a group and here you have a man, a particular gentleman there who's given 7 full scholarships and a couple of the students who received them, and they get a chance to interact and talk about how these funds have really changed their lives, because many of our students are on that edge. The community college is not generally the repository of situations. Myself, I have 3 college degrees. My wife has 3 college degrees. Our kids were college bound and so forth. Most of our students have not been successful as successful in high school, or they started families, they go back to school later, and so being successful in a higher education institution in that setting, finding out that they can make it in college, finding the resources, especially if they're a single mother with 26 years old. This is where the foundation brings the money right back, where the rubber meets the road for foundation dollars coming back to benefit students.
Truly. Gary, when you think about, and you mentioned endowment, and oftentimes someone will hear the word endowment, or they'll hear unrestricted funds or unrestricted endowments. What are some of the different aspects of ways that donors can have an impact on the foundation if they were interested in donating but weren't sure exactly where the funds could go? Are there ways for them to know exactly where their monies will be spent?
Yes, definitely. We have a variety of ways that we organize money. Like when we said of the $4 million, we're over $4 million. Of that, over $3.5 million is in an endowment. And so the people know that the money that they have given remains at the institution. It is never spent. The interest from that, and possibly some of the growth, interest of that is used to provide scholarships. So like this gentleman that I mentioned, who's one of our major donors, who has given funds, he's given over $200,000. That's endowed. The interest from that allows us to provide 7 scholarships a year to students. And that was the designation. Donors, sometimes we get donors who will want to give only for nursing programs, or only for our forestry, or our golf course, or some particular type of program. We have people who want to give to graduates of high schools. We have some scholarships that just are available to students from a particular high school or a particular community. We have some people who give to particular tasks, like this North Myrtle Beach, and that is we had a campaign to establish funding for a distance learning classroom. We went to the community and said, we need to be able to provide education to North Myrtle Beach. And we had a foundation, a local gentleman who is on a foundation board, said, we'll step up to the plate and we'll provide funding for that particular activity. So we work with donors in a variety of capacities. In our new library, one of the local foundations, we have a special law classroom. It's a little courtroom. And we went to the law professions. We went to all the lawyers. And we had, I think it's 26 different law firms contributed funds to allow us to furnish and design and build that facility. So sometimes the recognitions come in different capacities, but we provide recognition and a variety of opportunities for things. Our new campaign, there are a whole bunch of things that we can be doing.
And as you all, the new campaign has launched. Is it underway?
We will be launching, well, the official sort of meeting to reveal it is next Thursday. But what is happening with the college, our major thrust right now over the next 2 years, we have adopted a health care needs situation. That is, as we look at the community of Horry and Georgetown counties, the primary need that we see over the next few years that's going to be a major growth area is in health care. The aging of the population, a lot of the people moving in are retirees. They will need a greater health care. The baby boomers are aging. And so things like increasing the number of programs we have in nursing, increasing the number of programs in related fields. This year we're starting a new EMT. There's a desperate need for EMTs for emergency service. Next year or this year, later this year or next year, we'll start a pharmacy technology program, because with aging populations, obviously there are aging needs for pharmacies. So you can tell that by anybody who's lived in this area long enough knows that there's a pharmacy now on almost every street corner. It used to be a towel shop. Now they're right next to every towel shop. There's a pharmacy because of this need. So the thrust over the next 2 years or so is going to be a major health care. We're building a major wing in Georgetown for health care. We will be acquiring the hospital, which is right around the corner from the studios here, and refitting that as our entire allied health program for Horry County. So we've got to raise money for faculty salaries, raise money for equipment, raise money for buildings, all of this to meet the health care needs of the community. That's the new campaign.
That's something that Trident Technical College down in Charleston has been working diligently on as well. I mean, that is something down in the Low Country, and I guess most of the community colleges or technical colleges in the state. And when we mention the word community or technical college, those are virtually interchangeable, albeit most states use the community college moniker.
Right. We started off, the historical precedent was the institution started off as technical colleges, and so that name has been maintained. But it is around the country commonly known as a community college, and that is We have our primary mission, and 85% of our students are prepared to enter the workforce. That is, a 2-year degree from our institution prepares you to work. Now, you may continue that education at a baccalaureate level or not, but some of our programs are also transfer programs, which is the additional one. And that is, the program is designed for you to continue at Coastal or Francis Marion, the Citadel, Clemson, or so forth. That's the smaller part. Our mission is economic development and preparing people for the workforce. The whole state is this. Yes, Trident's been at it, Midland's been at it, because, in fact, we had a couple of state summits on health care. And part of this is growing from the whole understanding that the entire population, all the baby boomers, are aging. Health care needs across the state. There's a drastic shortage of nurses. Hospitals are paying bonuses. As we know, one of our local hospitals was recruiting internationally, bringing people from foreign countries in because they couldn't find enough nurses to open up new facilities. So it is a statewide need. In our area, it may be more critical because of this growth that we're having, which is an influx. That we're not growing because we're producing more babies or because our baby boomers are aging. That is true, but that's not happening more than the state. What we find is the influx into Horry County and Upper Georgetown County, the Waccamaw Neck, are coming from people who are retiring from other communities and moving here in a larger percentage. So our population is aging, in a sense, percentage-wise, at a faster rate than the state.
The colleges the enrollment is increasing so rapidly. It's amazing to see the impact on the community and to know that so many of those folks stay in the community. They finish up. You mentioned the opportunity to expand into Coastal Carolina or some of the other colleges in the area, but so many of them stay right here.
Yes, we are. Over 90% of our students come out of this local community and stay, and even the ones many of them who come here end up staying. We have a few programs that attract people. Our golf course program is a kind of a nationally famous program, and people come here. But of course, many of them, because we've got 111 golf courses, graduate from the college and end up staying and working in this community. So, yeah, we are designed to meet the needs of this community, and so we attract students. We, in fact, try to get them to stay here. One of our whole issues is trying to find situations that, like in our nursing program. So we're educating people from Georgetown to meet Georgetown hospital needs. We're educating people from Horry County to meet Horry County hospital needs. And that's a major thrust of the college.
Gary, how does the foundation get the word out about what they do within the community, how they benefit the college, and obviously how they benefit the students within the college? How do they work to get the word out?
That's probably is the major frustration of all activities, is communication, and how do we tell people about what's going on. And we do that with our campaigns. We do some advertising announcements, our thank yous, and so forth. We do it by making speeches at a lot of community functions, a lot of civic organizations. We present our story as much as possible. It's the same sort of story of the college, where we're trying to tell people, we are your local college. We are here for Horry County. In fact, we are owned. A lot of people don't understand that the property there, all of this property, the campuses we have, all the buildings belong to the people of Horry County. We are not owned by the state of South Carolina. We are owned by Horry County. And so we're constantly trying to tell people about that. We work with different organizations, with law firms and business firms and so forth, to communicate that there are options to reinvest. In fact, our new campaign, we're calling it a prospectus for investment. We're not asking people to give money. That's one of the things that people have to understand. In fact, I was at a meeting in Columbia yesterday where we talked about investing in the community in return for dollar. And one of the things that we can tell people is that if you invest in providing good, employable workers in this community, you will actually get more back in your dollars than you can, say, buying stock in the stock market. Buying stock in this college, buying stock in the services we provide, the graduates we produce who become productive citizens, may be the best investment that we can make in this community.
That's a powerful point. Do you think that's being received? Do you think they're getting it?
I don't know, but I'll keep singing it. I'll keep singing the same song, and maybe not just myself, but you and other members of our board, foundation board, our members of our area commission, our faculty. We have a very strong initiative to be out in the community, to be involved in community service, and we are constantly trying to communicate to people We don't do some of the other glamour things, and I don't mean putting down having, championship football teams and championship baseball and basketball and so forth. The idea of being UConn and having the national championship in both men and women's basketball, brings you some attention. But we are here, and I think the community knows this is the place where you get the education that provides you with an employable skill. It's amazing. A lot of people aren't aware that as much as 15% of our student bodies sometimes have already received a baccalaureate degree, but find out they can't find a job. Right. A bachelor's degree in psychology or politics. You have a degree in politics, but you have a good job. But a lot of times it's hard to find a job, and they come back and they get paralegal skills, or they get engineering skills, or something else that then they say, okay, I can now market myself in a particular field.
Last, Gary, if you weren't the executive director of the foundation and the vice president for institutional advancement and technology here at the college, what do you think you'd be doing? Do you think you'd be back create films or in the classroom?
Very possibly. In fact, I've always sort of discussed the fact that I'm going to retire from here and maybe go back into film and television production. So I do some work in that area. I write screenplays and so forth. And so I think in my future years, my next life again, you have to constantly revitalize yourself in your life and so forth. That's my future. Maybe back, definitely, we'll be back in photography, art, film, television, in those fields.
Gary, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Enjoyed the opportunity to tell people about the foundation and about the college, and hope we'll have some interest.
Very definitely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People with Gary Davis coming up next. We want to thank Gary Davis and the foundation for working so hard to create and strengthen positive relations between the college and the community, and for making today's Carolina People so special.